Hi, welcome to Adulthood Pending Podcast. I'm Brittany.
I'm Annalise.
And I'm Kimmy.
We're a podcast for college students, recent graduates, or anyone else who is also figuring out that being an adult isn't as simple as it's made out to be. Join us each episode as we share how we're navigating our careers, post-grad lives, and the whole adulting experience.
When we first started this podcast and we're telling friends about our topic of the podcast, adulting, a lot of people assumed that we would immediately be talking about things like money and finances. And we didn't actually talk about any of those things until episode 12 with Vrinda, where we discuss credit. So in this episode, we're taking a deeper dive into what we've learned since graduating and how we've been managing money and how our perception of money has changed over time. So our fun question for today is, what was your most recent splurge purchase?
So at my job, I've been working as a barista for the last few months, and it's a lot of bending over and hand work. So my back has just been hurting literally every single day for the last 3 months. And so yeah, my back every day just hurts all the time. And so my recent splurge was I got a massage for myself, and it was actually really helpful because she was very knowledgeable. So I felt like she gave me tips that have helped my back since then. So
Wow.
yeah, definitely worth the money.
Wait, so she gave you a back massage, not a hand massage?
She gave me a full body massage.
Oh, full body massage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
My recent splurge, this one, I'm calling this a splurge because it costs a lot, but it was like a walking treadmill that I got, and I wish I had bought it like earlier in the pandemic because I literally got it like a month ago, which is like pretty late. But it's so great because like I just walk on it and I just watch TV, and it's like one of the cheaper ones where it's just like the desk. So I don't have a standing desk either, but I just got the treadmill. But I have it like placed in front of like one of our TVs like in the basement. So I just walk on it and I watch TV. And like in the next, like I'll watch like Great British Bake Off, and then the next thing you know, it's like a full episode's gone and I'm still walking and I'm just not thinking about it because I'm just so engaged in the show, but at the same time I'm walking. So
Can you put it on the incline?
That's good.
No, you can't. So that's probably why it wasn't like one of those really expensive treadmills. It's just like a flat treadmill, and I think the fastest it goes is like 6 miles per hour. So you can't like do a sprint on it or anything.
That's good. Mine is similar to Britt. I like 2 days ago bought a massage gun, and it came yesterday.
Oh,
yeah, it
have you
was
used
on
it yet?
sale. I did use it yesterday. I tried out all the different. It has like different heads, and I literally tried all of them. And it says like what part of the body you're supposed to use it on. So it's just like doing it everywhere. So it was good, helpful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, look at all three of us taking care of our bodies.
I know.
Yeah, all health related.
What? So to kick off this episode, I guess the first question is, how has your perception of money changed over time? Like when you're a kid versus a student in college, and then, post-grad, and now like the three of us spent some time living at home post-grad as well. So like, how has your perception changed throughout these different stages in your life?
Yeah, for me, obviously I feel like when you're a kid, you think about money less than you do as an adult. But I was like aware of it pretty early on. I don't remember quite what age, but definitely like before high school. I set up a bank account with my dad. Like we went to the bank and set it up. So I think from that point on, I had been like very aware of money and would get the statement every month to see how much I had in the bank. And it was always like a little fun competition between me and my brothers.
Oh,
because I started working before any of them.
Oh, that's right.
Including my older brother. So I had more money than him. And that was nice to have.
Wait, would you just look at each other's bank statements?
I mean, it was just kind of like, whatever. Because like we would get the mail and then look at it and then like compare.
I just picture like Kimmy's whole family sitting down, like game night, but instead of game night, you just compare bill statements.
I'm imagining like Kimmy making this like diorama on her wall.
Yeah,
where it's like
me too.
Like the levels of whose level of like
Oh my
how
God.
much money you have in account, and then Kimmy's like at the top and it's her photo.
It wasn't even that. It was literally just opening the mail and being like, oh, how much do you have? How much do you have?
Oh my gosh, that sounds so old since people like look at their phones now.
Oh, I know.
Online statements. Yeah.
Like when you open up the mail.
Yeah, but now, I mean, and then in college, I feel like the perception of money also was kind of skewed because most people take out a loan, whether that's like on yourself or through your parents. And
Mm,
most of the things that at least I did in college were already paid for in a sense. So it's just like doing things on
Mhm.
campus, going to the dining hall. So we didn't really spend that much money, at least me and my friends. But then post grad, it's kind of crazy because you're like entered into a world where if you have a salary job, it's the first time when you're making like real money. And then you have
Mhm.
to make real decisions that will impact the rest of your life. So I
Oh,
feel like it's like, I mean, it's true.
yeah. Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like it's just like a really steep, like, it's not really, there's no ramp up period. It's just like
True.
0 to 100, you know?
True.
yeah.
So that's my perception.
Yeah. I feel like for me, money's always just been kind of a stressful thing for me. When I was younger, at one point or another, both my at least one of my parents didn't have a job. So I feel like I was always really conscious about money and like not wanting to spend it.
Mhm.
And then I go to college and like get a, you know, 10-hour work study job. And then I'm like, oh yeah, look at all this money I got. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm definitely privileged in the sense of like, oh, I think I always knew I had somewhat of a backup plan. Like I always had my parents to support me.
Mhm.
Um, but I definitely go in phases where I'll like spend a lot and then I'll but then I'll be like, oh wait, no, I gotta save a lot. And so I'll like save a lot, but then I'll be like, oh wait, I saved so much, I should treat myself. So I feel like I just don't have a very consistent relationship with money in general. Especially now that I'm about to go back to school. And so I'm kind of like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be a student. So maybe that's also something that shaped my perception is like I never thought I'd have a real I wouldn't be making a substantial salary until later in my life. So I
Mhm.
was always kind of like, oh, might as well just kind of save what I can and spend what I can and have fun because um, I'll be paying off a lot of stuff later on in my life, which I know is not the smartest, but that's just kind of how
But
I think,
YOLO.
yeah, gotta enjoy life while you got it, right?
Yeah.
I do
I think.
agree.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. I do agree though, like before I had this job, like it was very hard to be consistent with spending things,
Mm.
especially being in school or like living at home right now. It's
Mm,
like if you aren't necessarily contributing to household expenses, then it's like
Mhm.
you just spend stuff on what you want
yeah,
and
exactly.
consistent.
Yeah, like when especially now that I'm living apart from my parents, I'm a little better at it, thank God. But when I was at home and had my job and all my money was pretty much like went to whatever I wanted to because I didn't pay for rent really, I was super inconsistent. Yeah, it's hard to see things long term when it's like, oh, this is like the 1 year where I'm gonna
Mhm.
have a salary to myself. Might as well do what
Mhm.
I want with it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. So, I was definitely privileged, like growing up, to know that like, my family could support me financially.
Mm,
And then I think so. I didn't have a bank account until I entered college, but I think that was a lot of that was because of like growing up overseas and then
mm-hmm,
coming to the
Mhm.
States and opening up my first bank account. And then at that point, it was like in college. So a lot of that was like my own finances and like trying to deal with that. But again, like both of you mentioned, like when you're in college, or at least like in our situations, our parents were able to support us to a certain degree. So it wasn't like we were essentially worried about like money for dining halls because that was already paid for
Mhm.
beforehand. Um, so I think like the part where I was when I started to think more consciously about like my personal finance was when I got my internship that one summer that I was in New York, because New York's expensive and I was paying rent. So it was like trying to figure out like how to balance all of that. And I was getting paid, I think, like minimum wage at the time because it was just an internship.
Oh shoot.
So from there, and then another internship, like a lot of it was like when I started working and making like more money than just, I guess, what as college would pay you for a non-campus job, and like trying to be more aware of like budgeting. Like a lot of the, I think I spent like a good chunk of time trying to figure out like the proper budget, especially after college. I use Intuit's app Mint. And I use, well, so okay, so for a while I was doing things like manually, like in a spreadsheet, and would enter in all of my spendings, and that made me like extremely aware of like where I was putting my money. But then I got kind of tired of doing it because I would have to do it a lot. So then I switched over to using
so much.
Nope, and then because I was switched over to using Mint because it's automatic. But so it was nice because it would like text you when you're reaching your budget. But a lot of it is like you're still, when you graduate from college, you're still trying to figure out what you're spending money on exactly, and like how often you're going out to see friends and how often you're going out to eat at restaurants. So a lot of it was like trying every month I would change my budget a little bit to like map out, exactly how much I was spending. But I don't think, I think like after college is when I became a lot more aware of my personal finances and budgeting. Mainly budgeting was the big thing.
That's good. And then Annalise, you touched a little bit about like being overseas and not really dealing with like money there. So I'd be curious to learn about like how your upbringing, and you as well, Britt. You said there's a moment when both of you, or one of your parents wasn't working. So like how did your family shape the way that you perceive money?
I don't think we didn't really talk a lot about money. I think my parents were more focused on like making sure that my sister and I, weren't really necessarily worried about finances. Like I think there was a period of time where my dad was also unemployed for a little bit, and we were just talking about that recently, and that was a very, very stressful time in his life, and with him and my mom, because he was unemployed, but my sister and I were both at like international schools, which cost a lot of money because they're basically private schools. So he was extremely stressed because he didn't have any money at all, and he was worried that we wouldn't be able to continue at those schools. But fortunately, he did find a job and was able to like continue to send us to that school. But that's something that like I didn't really know, because I think my parents were just so good at like shielding that from us. But what's interesting now is that I think we've talked a lot more about finances, and I think maybe part of that is just like growing older and having more knowledge in this area, and like having to take care of your own finances. And my parents are like, now they talk about it a lot with me, and especially with me and my sister, we have very different lifestyles. Like I'm working, but she's still in school, so it's very interesting to like have that contrast, and having like my parents call my sister and be like, do you have enough money, like are you okay, because she doesn't have an income. So for her, a lot of it is like just because she's still in school, whereas like for me, they don't really ask that because they know that I have a job and I'm being paid. So that's like, it's just a very different and interesting relationship, I think, in my family.
Yeah, for me, I feel like my parents, I mean, rightfully so, but I remember my dad lost his job like beginning of high school, and then my mom lost her job like towards the end of high school. But then luckily one of them had a job at one point. But I remember they had told me and my sister, oh, he's not working, she's not working. We should try to maybe cut back, not go out to dinner so much or ask for so many things. So for like growing up, I never really asked for a lot of like expense, or I tried not to at least ask for a lot of expensive things, or ask for money too often, because I didn't have a job. So our parents in high school would be the one that gave us money that we would spend when we like went out with our friends and stuff. And so I was always super conscious about that, which I think may have like slightly contributed to the reason why when I did get a job and did have money that I could call my own, I wasn't like asking for my parents for money and stuff. I was kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna do what I want because I have all this freedom with it. But yeah, I think it definitely, I feel like I'm being really confusing about it, because at this, as much as it made me really self-conscious about like what I spent and how much I wanted and things that I actually needed, at the same time it really like when I do have money to myself, I'm kind of like, oh, I think I should have the liberty to choose what I spend it on, like no matter how frivolous it might seem to other people. But
Mhm.
yeah, so that's kind of how it was for me growing up. But how is it for you, Kimmy?
Yeah, I think so. My dad works and worked before in an industry that is like very money related.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like those conversations we just had growing up and like have now all the time because it's like the field that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
But similar to both of you, like there definitely was a time during the 2008 recession when things were rocky for a lot of families, and it was also rocky for mine. But I, like Annalise, had no idea that that had even happened. Like neither of them had lost their jobs or anything like that. But like later on, my mom was telling me like, yeah, like that was actually a difficult time. Like X, Y, and Z could have happened to her family, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, we definitely have like talked about money as a family, but probably growing up when it came to like very adult conversations like that, they didn't tell us about that, probably for the better. But they just probably like did things to cut costs on their own that I was
Yeah.
unaware of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I honestly can't imagine being a parent and like trying to figure all that out right now. I mean, obviously, like we're young, but just like that's just so foreign to me, that whole idea of like taking care of your whole household and like trying to decide all
Mhm.
these like big financial decisions. Like I'm barely managing my own finances right now as is,
I know,
and
me
I'm just one
too.
person.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's like a part of the reason why like so much of my habits did change when I started making my own money, because a lot of it was I saw what was coming in and what was going out. So
Mhm.
I think like after graduating and being paid a salary job, I think I'm like even more conscious of my spendings than before. And so a lot of it is like I actually, okay, I will admit I don't buy as much stuff as I did before, which is maybe surprising to the people who do know me. But a lot of it was just
It
because
is.
like I think it's just because like I just don't know what's gonna happen in the future. And I think like I'm so young that
Yeah.
a lot of me right now is like I want to save as much money as I possibly can and put as much money of that into like my retirement fund or my
Mhm.
I don't know, health insurance. Like a lot of what I'm doing, I think I'm focused more now on my future and how my finances, that like thinking long term essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Oh, you can go, Kimmy.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, after my year of my other job where I was living at home, and I spent I did save money for like, because I knew I had expenses for med school and stuff I wanted to save up for. But
Mm-hmm.
then for the most part, I never really tracked what I spent things on, and so I would just
Mhm.
buy what I wanted. But since then, I've definitely like I probably saved more money here, like living outside my parents' house, and like even though I have more expenses to pay, just because
Oh
I'm
wow.
so yeah,
Yeah.
surprisingly, just because I think like yeah, having a year of working and like not having that much savings to show for it, I was kind of like, oh wait, this needs to change. I want to have a safety net in case something does happen, especially like with the pandemic and
Mhm.
stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's interesting how you've done that too, Annalise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you were saying something earlier, and at least like now you've been thinking more long term when you think about
Mm-hmm.
money, which I think is really interesting because, as I mentioned in every episode, I was watching a TikTok and the
Oh my gosh.
TikToker was like a finance TikToker. And he was like, there's a difference between like a wealth mindset and like a get rich mindset. And he's like, a lot of people that come from like wealthier backgrounds, they teach their kids to like invest early and save early and do all these things to prepare you for the future. Where like, like average people, like how I was raised, it's just like, oh, you should make money, get a really good job.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like there's definitely a difference in like privilege and class and how people are taught to think about money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do agree, but I think a lot of it also is just like knowledge. Like
Yeah.
I think like if your parents, like even if your parents didn't have a lot of money or like your family didn't have a lot of money, if like something happened and then suddenly your family knows about investing, they may still instill that
Hmm.
information on their kids, like, hey, this happened in our family, and like we want you to have a better life. So, you know, things that we've learned and things that we wish we did were like invest, you know, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think I can see that relationship, but I don't think that that's also the sole reason or like the sole thing that differentiates between class and, you know,
Yeah.
what be it.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I just wish I was like, man, because like I just put my money into a normal savings account when I was younger. I was like, oh my gosh, if I put that into like a Roth or something that would build over time, like I could have had so much more money today. But it's okay.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I just like don't think about money that often is I mean, I've kind of mentioned it before in the episode about credit, is I see a lot of like my friends are very like financially literate and just have a lot of knowledge about what it takes to make money and like save money, and I don't know, just like tricks to the trade, I guess. And then I just never had that, and I never understood it at all when they would like talk about it. And so I was just like turned off from the idea of that at all, like looking into investing or high yield savings accounts. And I don't even know what I'm saying right now, but like I think that's I think that's like just really interesting how that just knowing I didn't have knowledge about money really just turned me off from the idea of even trying to learn, just because I'm just like, this is too overwhelming, this is too much information. And I felt like I never wanted to ask someone, even though my friends are my friends, I never wanted to like ask them to explain it to me. So just because it's like a subject like I feel like not really many people talk about.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Like I get extremely overwhelmed when people talk finances to me, especially investing, because I like still to this day don't really. All I know is you put money somewhere, and then depending on what you invest in, it either grows or drops. That's the extent of my knowledge. And then at some point you sell or you keep it, something like that. Like literally no knowledge. So whenever someone tells me like, oh, you should invest in this, blah 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 blah, like I get extremely overwhelmed because I'm like, how, when, why? Like
I know, like I feel like I would just regret, like have so many regrets. Like what if I didn't put, what if I put it into a different stock, or like
yeah,
what if I bought it at the wrong
exactly.
time? It just seems stressful.
What if it never grows? Yeah.
We should title this "How to Invest" and just make the episode that little clip of Annalise explaining investing in her own words.
Investing 101, you're welcome.
Either you buy or you sell or you keep, or I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, my mom really wanted me to take like an econ class, I think because like she doesn't have a lot of knowledge, or she's not really financially literate, so I think she wanted me to be financially literate, but I never did. And she likes to bring it up.
Yeah.
Like, you should take a class. I'm like, no.
Will econ like necessarily teach the like life skills?
That's the thing, exactly. Like I feel like a lot of classes in college, in order to get to take those classes where it's about like life skills and all these other things, you have to take all the intro econ classes too, that I don't have interest in.
Yeah.
So that's
I mean, I feel like at this point the best other alternative is just like talks and stuff, but those are
talks and books, I guess.
Yeah,
but it's not very, it's not, you won't be
digestible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kimmy, I feel like
Kimmy's the most.
I'll say it. Yeah, I'll say it. I think you're the most financially literate out of all three of us.
Yeah.
I'll admit it.
Maybe. I mean, I'm just thinking of like how I, acquired my knowledge. And yes, in school I did take like, I basically was an econ major. I didn't have all the requirements, but I took like enough econ classes to take one of the finance classes. But it was more based on like stocks and like the market than it was on retirement or like budgeting or anything like that. But that definitely gave me like a good concept of how kind of the market works and like why stocks are priced the way they are.
Sure.
But since then, this past year, I've become like really invested in personal finance and things like that. So like I follow a lot of different like personal finance TikTokers and also follow people on Instagram, which I feel like helps just break up my feed. And then Her Capital, which is an organization that was founded by two two Stanford students, or one of them went to Stanford, one of them went to somewhere else, a few years ago. It's like an organization about empowering women just to learn more about finances. They had a couple webinars in partnership with different like banks and organizations. So I attended some of those to just learn more. So that's how I've acquired my knowledge. And my brother's very knowledgeable, and we speak a lot about this kind of stuff. Yeah. And my sorry, just thinking of all my different things. And my boyfriend's mom is a financial advisor.
Oh.
So I've been like doing things with her through her company. And since she's an advisor, she has knowledge and then passes that on to her kid, my partner, my boyfriend. So I can also talk to him about things to just learn more, like flesh out any things that I'm unsure about.
Interesting.
That's the thing though, is that like I know these conversations are like great to have because they like help you learn more. But then again, like going back to what Brittany and I were saying, I get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do I do? Cry.
Yeah,
Just
I
kidding.
feel like
Google,
for
what
me,
is a stock in the corner?
Singular stock. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess whenever I have these conversations, because I get why it's so overwhelming because there's so many different topics to cover.
Yeah.
But when I have the conversations, I normally just like ask one question and then it leads to more questions. So I don't know if that helps, but like, yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. If there was like a half semester course on like financial literacy that they could have in college, I would take it.
Yeah.
Going back on it. Because I think it is interesting how like Kimmy, you're saying so many outside things and your own motivation to learn. Whereas like Annalise, you're like, oh, I wish I took an econ class, but then you're not necessarily learning like applicable life things. Oops, sorry, I keep touching my thing. So I don't know. I think that's just like interesting how a lot of financial literacy is just like access to knowledge and your own motivation to learn these things because they aren't super accessible.
For sure. Yeah, it's like I wish there was like there's probably like I don't know what finance for dummies. Remember those books where it was like topic for dummies? There's probably one for like personal finance.
Yeah.
But then you would need that motivation to like read it and learn and then figure things out and then apply, you know.
Yeah, I remember they had a talk at school through our like career center, and my sister said she was going, and I think the title of it was literally like, oh, learning financial literacy, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. And I was like, my sister's just going because she wants to sound cool because she's like, I'm going to this talk on financial literacy, and I was like, I'm not going just to spite that because I don't like how I don't know what that means. But yeah, even like the topic of that, I'm like, what is financial advising? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't know a lot of stuff. What we've covered.
Yeah, basically this whole episode, if no one's noticed, is we don't know what we're doing. The end. I guess a question I have is like how have you been dealing with your personal finances? Maybe like in terms of budgeting. Never now we could start off with budgeting something small.
Yeah, so I've been living away from home, and so I pay for pretty much all of my expenses more or less. And I've tried the apps like Mint, but I don't know. I think that just wasn't for me, and so it just really helps. I'm just putting all my spendings on a spreadsheet, just so I like have it laid out what I've spent. But then, at least like you said before, I try to set limits for each category, so I have like a treat kind of spending budget, and then food, groceries, and like essentials. And I feel like it changes so drastically by hundreds of dollars sometimes, like when I'll spend and have a lot left over. But I don't stress out about that too much as long as like net it's more or less under the budget. I'm happy with it.
Yeah. I feel the same, especially like with things like personal care, like shampoo and conditioner, like you don't know when you're gonna run out, but suddenly
Yeah.
like you buy it and then you're like, ah, crap, I didn't budget for that because I didn't know I would run out.
True.
So yeah, like I take those budget as kind of like an estimate about how much I think I should be spending that month, just like based on things, and also like holidays and when you're gonna be out spending time with like friends, you can't really plan that, or like if you're gonna go on vacation for some time, that also changes your budget a little bit. So a lot of that is like I try to take it month to month. But back when I was living by myself, like on my own in Boston and everything, I was definitely checking Mint a lot more than I am now, because now I'm at home. So, you know, very privileged that my parents are taking care of me.
Yeah. You also said you're not
as
even
a
buying that much.
24-year-old. Yeah, that too.
I
Like
mean, that's me also.
I think the thing is like the reason why I'm not buying much is because I'm not doing much at all.
Yeah.
So I don't have
Yeah.
a reason to buy anything. But that's gonna obviously change, like, you know, when things open up again and all that. So I think like when I start to, you know, go out and see people and all that, I'm gonna have to reevaluate a lot of my spendings, and I'll probably be checking Mint a lot more.
Yeah, I also like Brit have been tracking my spendings manually for a while. And yeah, before I was like creating a budget, but never really told myself like, okay, you have to stick to this. It was more just to see kind of where I spend things. So I feel like over time it shifted into more of like a tracker than like a budgeter. But I love like looking at data. So it's always interesting to see like how things have changed like year over year, month over month, whatever. And then also comparing the different categories. But even when I did live away from home, because it was for such a short period, in these places that I was at, I was like trying to maximize my time there, like attend all these different events and really explore the area. So even though I did have a better sense of budgeting then, because all of the expenses I was paying for on my own, definitely like my budget was skewed quite often just because I was trying to make the most of my time there.
Yeah. I think that's the other things that like we're all like very, I'll say young. We're young. We're at like early stages in our life where a lot of things do change. So it's hard to predict. And I do wonder if like as you grow older, does that become more stable? Like I don't know, like if you have kids, do you then have to like become very strict about your budgeting because you have other people to take care of and like the whole household to take care of? Wouldn't know.
I feel
Don't
like
even
it'd
wanna think
be
about
even
that.
more flexible
Yeah.
just because like you might just have a random giant expense from something.
Yeah, like what
That's
if I
true.
don't know, what if like you need to buy school supplies or something? I don't know why that came to
Yeah,
mind.
but recently, as of a few months ago, I started using an app called Personal Capital, which I highly recommend
Oh.
because it connects to like all of your different credit cards, connects to any loans you have, whether that be like student loans, car payments, house loans, literally anything. Connects to like any stocks or retirement you have, any like even like cryptocurrency that you might have. So I've really enjoyed using that because it breaks it down in every different level. And then every day they send me an email saying like, here's the changes in your account. And it says like, okay, yesterday you spent this money at this place. And also shows if you do have any stocks, like how your individual stocks have been impacted, and shows like
They
the
send you that daily?
percentages. Yeah. So I found it to be super helpful.
Annalise looks stressed.
So I highly recommend it.
No. Why would you say that? I think okay, the reason why I maybe did look stressed is because I think I would obsess over stocks. Like if it dipped, I'd panic, you know, a little bit, which I know is like natural and normal. But
Yeah.
I think for me, like if I saw a daily email, I don't know if I would actually read it.
Well, you
That's
can
me.
delete it. You don't have to read them all the time.
Yeah. But I'd be curious. So I like look and then I see the number and I like, and then I a lot of me and my relationship with finance is apparently a lot of sound effects. That's my relationship with finance.
It was just for me, like seeing it all in one place was especially helpful because I do have a lot of student loans. So being able to see like, okay, at this point, like now I could pay off all my student loans, or I can't, and to kind of see the contrast
Mhm.
has been helpful. So yeah, I've liked it for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So Kimmy, you kind of talked a little bit about, you mentioned this earlier where you said like the people that you learned your finances from were like your brother, your partner, and your partner's mom. So I guess like how has money played a role in your relationships?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Eric in particular, like, I mean, we talked about this a lot in episode, I think 3, part 2, where we talked about like gender roles and who should pay on the first date and stuff like that. So throughout all of our relationship, we've gone 50-50 on everything. So I feel like that was probably the first conversation on money, was like who's paying for what. But now as we've like talked about our relationship more and are like preparing to move in together, we've also had to consider like what's equitable, if someone's making more
Right.
money, if they should be paying more, and like how that contributes to rent or just like the household expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we talk about it pretty freely, and anytime like I mean, we talk a lot and I tell him everything. So like literally if I buy something, I'm like, oh, I just bought this. Or if something like major money wise happens in my life, like at this point, I'm close-ish on like one of my money goals. So I told him
Mm,
about that as
Hmm.
well. So I feel like
nice.
just because I am pretty open with it, like he is as well.
Mm.
What about you, Britt?
I think since living with my boyfriend, we've definitely talked about money more so than we did in our past. Like
Mm.
before, it used to be like, oh, whoever was visiting, who the person who's the person who flew would pay for their own ticket, but then the person, like while they were there, the other person would pay for all the expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of our system. But now, since like living together, and also since he makes way more money than I do, I think I've become a lot more comfortable with being like, okay, he can just like pay for more things, or um
Mm-hmm.
like I'm definitely, I don't know, I feel like I don't have a problem with it just because obviously he just makes so much more money than me. It makes sense that
Right.
he'll like pay for more things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I don't think gender roles necessarily play a role in that. It's strictly just a fact of like figures and how much I'm actually able to contribute. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's definitely been helpful to be more open about talking about what like how much we each other make and like what we're actually capable of spending.
So when I was dating one of my exes, we did a lot of things 50-50. And I think that was
Mm,
because like we were both students, so it didn't
yeah.
really matter.
Yeah.
But I think like, we like Kimmy did said, like Kimmy mentioned, we did talk about this in a previous episode, but I think a lot of it is like when I started dating again, and um a lot of that is gonna be like trying to figure out who pays for what. And like I'm personally
Mm-hmm.
okay with like paying for things just because I know that I have a stable job, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously it would depend on like who I'm on a date with and what their situation is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I feel like it'd be really interesting to see how the person I'm on a date with would respond. I feel like that'd be, it
Mm-hmm.
might also be kind of telling of like their character, because I feel like Brittany, you were saying a lot of it is like finding out or like getting a balance, and it's not even like a 50-50 balance, but like who can actually,
Mm-hmm.
pay for these things comfortably and not worry about their finances as much as like the other person. I
Mm-hmm.
think like that should
Mm-hmm.
be factored in as well. And I think a lot of the pressure that people see about guys paying is just like the way that society has kind of made them think like, okay, you have to do this because you're the guy, or like
Mm-hmm.
as the girl you have to allow them to do this. And I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
not always the case, and obviously like some people are totally okay with
Mm-hmm.
that, that's fine, but
Mm.
yeah, it'll be interesting.
So Kimmy and Annalise, as the more experienced um, out of the three of us when it comes to personal finances, do you have any things you'd like to share that you wish you knew before starting, and maybe some helpful money tips?
That's a really good question. I feel like there are so many things, but one of the things I wasn't super familiar going into the workforce was like retirement. That was something that I never discussed with other people or my family. Um, but essentially, when you're at a company, for example, I was interning at a company and their role was like after 3 months, you're eligible to contribute some of your money to retirement. So I was like, oh, this is cool. This is perfect. I'm living at home. I could contribute a majority of it to retirement.
Mm-mm.
And I ended up doing that. Um, and in some instances, like it's completely up to you. When you leave a company and then if you move to new one and they use a different service for their 401k plans, you have the option to roll over your retirement money into like the new account. And that was something I'd wanted to do. And the process was just so tedious and long. So my tip there is like, don't be like scared in general when you think about money or like are trying to learn more information. Like it literally took me probably 10 different phone calls with both companies being like, I need to roll over my money. I'm not even joking. Like, here, how do I do the
Wait,
process?
I have a question. Why did you
Go
decide
ahead.
to roll it over? Like, can you not just keep it in that
Mhm.
other account
Yeah.
and just use
Was the
that?
other one just
Mhm.
better?
You can keep it in one account in like two separate accounts. I just didn't want to have that because I feel
Oh.
like that's just harder to manage down the line.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and I just because I wasn't associated with the company that was using that plan anymore. I just didn't want to do that.
What if though the next company you go to uses the previous plan? Like, won't you have to then
The
switch back?
Yes, but the previous, first of all, the amount of money that I had in um the former account was kind of small,
Mm.
and I knew the amount of money I was going to have in this account because now I'm getting
Mm.
paid salary would be a lot
Mm.
larger, and the account I'm using now is a lot more popular. It's
Oh,
Fidelity,
got it. Okay, okay.
so I
Oh,
was
okay, okay,
like, this
okay.
just makes sense on so many levels.
Right,
Um,
okay.
but yeah, it took a lot of customer support phone calls, which was frustrating. But I mean, it worked out in the end.
Why is it
But
like
I
that?
just feel like you have to persevere because it was frustrating because like they don't necessarily communicate with each other. So I had to like call them both separately and ask about the process of doing it. And it's also different
Mm.
if you're transferring to like one account versus another because different companies do it in different ways. So I first had to get a statement from my former company saying that I'd been terminated since that was never sent over to the retirement company.
Oh.
So then they sent that over. And then I had to call the new company, the new like retirement plan company that I'm with to
Right, right,
ask
right.
them the proper way to roll it over. And they said, okay, like the check has to have your name on it, these like special numbers and something else.
Hmm.
Call the other company.
Oh
It
my
was just like
goodness.
such a long process with all of that. And also, every time you call, you speak to a different person.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
technically can do this whole process online. But because it was my first time doing it, like I had no idea how to do it in
Mm.
general. So I wanted to have someone to walk me through the process. And like the
Mm.
online version was filling out this really long form versus if you
Mm.
called, they just do it for you.
Right.
So yeah, I guess that's more of a story than a tip. But my tip is just like learn more, learn more, and like I always call customer support no matter what. Call customer support.
Hmm.
Interesting. I never call customer support. If I can do it online, I'll do it online. That's
I
me.
used to not, but then at my previous job, I would literally have to call all the time for like different
Mm.
services we used, and that was the only way to do it. So now I do it all the
Right,
time.
right. Oh,
Are you the type to
interesting.
call in to order food instead of just doing it online?
Yeah, because you save money.
Wait, what? Oh,
Wait, you
okay.
call versus do?
If
Oh, because
you
you call
order
directly
through,
the store
yeah.
versus got it. But what if the store had an option? This
Oh
is getting
no,
so off
if the
topic.
store
What
had
if the store had an
options,
option?
I would do the app.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
You call Pizza Hut
okay.
versus.
Oh man, if I had a tip, I don't know. I feel like a lot of it is like there are so many things that we don't get taught as about growing up with finances that I think, especially in school, like I don't know why schools don't do this. I feel like they should have a course on like,
Yeah.
you know, what you should do with money when you first graduate or something like that. Just because I think it is really important. But I just remember like when I first got my job, having to go through all the benefits and figuring out like how much more money I want to put into my insurance, which plan I want, and then like all those things. A lot of it was like a lot of phone calls with my dad and trying to figure that out. Also like same with Kimmy, like retirement plan, like how much I want to put. The one tip I can give is if your company does a match program, max it out. Like if they basically what that means is if you put in a certain amount, your company will match that. So you'll kind of get, I think, like what double or whatever that percentage is, so that you'll just basically be putting more into your finances, your retirement fund. So if you can max out on that percentage, so like that way it's like free money essentially for your retirement fund in the future. And so you would want to at least max out on that. And anything you could put in more than however percentage your company will match you for, but anything above that is just like they're not going to match. So you can do that if you want, or you can just keep it as like whatever percentage your company will match you for. So definitely do that. That's like the one tip that I can give, I think.
So as someone who doesn't have a 401k because I don't work a job or salary job, but like
you can still set up a 401k account or like some kind of retirement fund without like a company that matches or does or has a program. You would just have to do it personally.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know. Well, we'll see. What?
Oh, I was saying exactly because no one knows that. You can like set up, it's called a Roth account, a Roth IRA, and you can set one up on your own. And
Wait,
it's
I
good
thought
to
that's
set
different from a 401k.
So I think oh my God, Kimmy and I had this long conversation about this.
Isn't it something about like taxable something?
So that's different. There's a Roth and then there's pre-Roth. So those are two separate things too. So you have a Roth 401 and then you also have a pre-Roth 401, but you also have a Roth IRA and then a pre-Roth IRA. So there's essentially, I guess, like four different things. Is that right, Kimmy?
But 401k, like 401k employers accounts are only eligible if you work for a company that offers it.
Yeah.
Are those like just usually better than like independent if I were to get one right now?
Yeah, because like the government basically says for a 401k, you can only contribute 19,500 for the whole year versus a Roth account that you set up personally on your own. You can only contribute 5,000 for the whole year. And there's limitations on who can set up a Roth account. It's like you have to make under a certain amount of money to set one up. So that's why people say when you're young, because you aren't making that much money, you should set it up because you aren't going to be able to do it, like, I don't know, once you make more money.
Yeah, there's like a certain salary cutoff or something. But I think the thing that you're talking about is Roth versus pre-Roth. And I think Roth is basically saying that like, so pre-Roth means that when you put that money into your account, you are already, that's not taxed, right, Kimmy? Or that is taxed. Pre is not.
I think that's correct. We might have to Google it. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
So yeah. So one of them basically is, while Kimmy Googles that up, basically one of them means that when you put money in, you do not pay tax. So that when you take the money out later on to use, you have to pay tax then. Versus the other one, which is where you pay for tax and then you put it in. So when you take it out and use it, you can just use it. The thing with that, and I talked to my dad about this, like obviously people do it differently, but you kind of want to think like, how much is the tax now? And the thing is like in the future, you don't know what the tax is going to be. So like if the tax is higher, you're going to be paying more tax. But if the tax is lower, then you're going to be paying less tax for when you take it out in the future.
So like so you're saying, okay, I guess my question was like, what's the difference between just having a normal savings account versus like the ones you're talking about?
The retirement. So the retirements are basically money that you cannot touch until you reach a certain age. And then that's just like yours forever. So people will basically, as they're making money, they'll put some money in a little bit each month or something. So that when they retire and they don't have like a job or whatever, they can still use that money. Like they'll just have all this money saved up for them to use in the future versus a savings, which is like it's just a savings.
Oh.
Pretty sure though with Roth IRAs, people don't know this, but I'm pretty sure you can take out money. It just with the 401k.
But with that, do you have to pay a certain money to take it out?
I'm just reading this on CNN. You have to be careful with how much money you can withdraw, or you may get stuck with a penalty. So it depends, I guess.
Yeah. Basically, we're not experts, so obviously do your own research, but these are just things that we've experienced personally. But obviously, of course, like consult with experts on this, do your research. But yeah, retirement funds or whatever accounts are not things that people usually talk about until you start making money. But
Yeah.
that said, like you can definitely have an account before you have a job, like a company, a job where the company will match you.
Yeah, that's why I never thought I could get.
Well, so we kind of touched a lot on different topics, and obviously a lot of the things that we talked about we just kind of scratched the surface on. So if you have anything that you want us to kind of dive deeper into, let us know. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about it from our personal experience. If not, Kimmy did mention some personal accounts that she follows, so she can also link that. She'll also link that as well on our show notes. But thank you all for listening. You can follow us at Adulthood Pending Podcast on Instagram. And you can also leave us an email at hello.adulthoodpendingpodcast@gmail.com for topic suggestions or questions or anything. And join us every other Monday for new episodes. We can't wait to share our stories and are excited you're with us on our adulthood journey.
Bye.
Bye.